joining Gwinnett County Public Library for our Meet the Author discussion series with author and Pulitzer Prize winner Rick Bragg and Emmy Award-winning journalist Duffy Dixon. The author's newest book is The Speckled Beauty, A Dog and His People. My name is Denise Ozier, and I am with the Gwinnett County Public Library's Adult Services Department. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator. She is Duffy Dixon, a multiple Emmy Award-winning communications and media specialist. Drawing from over 27 years in television and television news, she shares her expertise with corporate executives, government officials, individuals, and nonprofit organizations through her business, Duffy Dixon Media. Duffy is also a podcast host for Business Radio X, a member of the National Speakers Association, and a frequently sought after MC and moderator for many events, including an amazing supporter to the Gwinnett County Public Library System. I give you Duffy Dixon and Rick Bragg.
Thank you so much, Denise. Welcome, Rick. It is so good to see you again.
No, it's getting to be a habit, isn't it?
Oh, it's a great habit. This is probably the best habit I have. So that's good. This is a healthy habit. We should do this all the time.
It beats the heck out of like Oreos, you know.
Are you saying I have to give up Oreos?
No, I'm saying that I should.
I agree. Well, I don't think we should. I mean, at this, how much time are we going to get? How much time are we going to tack on if we give up Oreos?
Well, it's what was that they said? They, you know,
The experts.
Yeah, the experts. I said I'd never do an air quote. I just did one. But yeah, they said if you'd eat salads, you'd live like 5 days longer. And then I heard that if you eat a hot dog, it like takes away an hour. And so you can't win. You know, you just can't win.
No. I've got to tell you, I of course enjoyed interviewing. I think it was about 1.5 years or 2 years, given COVID. I think it was about maybe even 2.5 years that I had the pleasure of interviewing you with your last book. I want to tell people, if they're joining us, whether you've read this book or not, this one, I got to put it right here. There we go. This book is just absolutely amazing. I've got to say, I was just tickled by it. And I feel, I want to ask you something, because this felt, I mean, all your books have very personal stories. It's about your family. This book felt a little different. This felt very personal. And you really kind of bared your soul in a lot of ways. Was this a tough one to write?
Well, Duffy, it just didn't. Now, usually when you say, well, that book didn't work out like I wanted it to, that means, you know, the book's a dismal failure. But this one didn't work out like I wanted it to because life took over. You know, I wanted to do a book about a bad dog. You know, I knew there would be some heartfelt things in it because, you know, I found him starving to death up on a ridgeline behind my mom's cabin. And I knew that from there, you know, we could write a good book about this dog, just the mystery of where he came from and you know, the fact that he's just a terrible dog. I mean, you know, he terrorizes the cats and molests the livestock, and just a bad dog, just a bad dog. Terrorizes the UPS man. I think the meter guy from Cherokee Electric, you know, is I hope he keeps coming, or we may get free electricity. So I knew we would have a good book about a bad dog.
Because it does start out that way. It starts out that way about the dog. And then, so you're telling me you were writing this book and then life circumstances hit.
Yeah, I never went back and redid the thing. You know, I never went back, and so you see the book change. You know, you kind of see it go. It's not that it goes from, you know, exciting and and terrifying, because believe me, this dog is terrifying, to dismal. That's not it. But it, my brother Sam, who passed away in the spring,
So
and
sorry.
everyone knows Sam. Everyone knows Sam because he has been the backbone of every book I've ever written, and I've called him the last real Southern man, and I believe that. But he got sick as I was nearing the end of the book, and I was not going to write about him passing in a book about a dog. I just wasn't going to do that.
Right.
And so I stopped the book while Sam was still with us. He was out, when I had typed the last page, he was on his tractor in the pasture. And but the dog's reaction to all this sadness was he just kind of abandoned me, and he and my brother would sit in the lawn chair with that dog, and he didn't even like the dog. And my brother would put his hand on the dog's head, and they'd watch the sunset.
Well, I think that's the beauty of this. When you started writing about your dog, and if people have not read this book, I am here to tell you, this dog is not a good dog. I mean, it's not a joke. This dog has some serious flaws, and in a very specific way. I love your very, very true to who this dog is, but you make it very clear from the very beginning. And I actually, we used to have hunting dogs, and I used to be the one who tried to bathe them. So your brother is very much like, a dog is for work. I treat them well, but it's a working
Right.
dog, right? So
Right.
I love that. So you're telling me that, I mean, this makes the book even better, because your brother, I mean, he noticed the Speckled Beauty, but he said the same thing. First of all, he's like, there's no redemption for this, and he wouldn't touch it or give it any mind for a long time.
He spit on his head. I think he thought he was being the outlaw Josie Wales, but if the dog got too close to him, he just spit on his head, until my mother got on to him and said, "You can't spit on his head. That's the only place clean enough to pet him." And so it became, I don't know. I wanted to do it because I thought it'd be easy, after COVID and after, such, overwhelming sadness in all, I mean, almost said in all the land. I read a book by Defoe called The Plague Years, and it was a very similar to, I think, the way people felt, recently. And so I wanted to do an escape from that. And I think we did, but it was a different thing from what I kind of expected. Now, I do want to say something in Speck's defense.
Okay.
Speck,
I love Speck. Just so you know, I think I would hug that dog. I know he's going to smell, but
no, he's a lot cleaner now. He's a lot cleaner now, unless he has rolled in donkey manure, which he does every third day. But he has actually gotten better. I mean,
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, he still runs and chases and tries to herd. We have donkeys and a giant mule, and they could kill him anytime they wanted to, and he still just tries to hurt him. But because he's got one bad eye, he can only herd him in a circle, and they get kind of tired of that. I think in the book, I think I said, he's like a drunk teenager doing donuts in a parking lot. He can't get out of that rotation. Right. And so he's better. He's better than he was. Let's put it that way.
Are you surprised? I mean, I know you have always, you talk about your family has had a number of strays. You obviously, I mean, part of the magic of this book is describing really your inner sanctum. You're describing the animals around and how your mom has, has taken in strays and you've taken strays and, Sam has had dogs and everything else. Were you surprised? And we don't want to give away too much of the book, but were you surprised how Sam, well, you've already said a little bit of it, how Sam changed, whether he changed his opinion of the dog or not? Are you surprised that Speck, I honest to goodness believe animals sense stuff. And I mean, the fact that Speck, he knew maybe he wasn't loved or wanted, but he just really, he globbed onto Sam.
Yeah, no, I think I've heard, I have always been suspicious of the magic that people attribute to dogs. I've just never really bought into it. I never really believed it. But people who love dogs and have had dogs and were not at all surprised when I told them this story. Well, of course, why are you? Of course, dogs sense when people are down or when they're hurt. Of course they do, dummy. But he just seemed to know. My mom is only 84, but she, during the COVID and the years leading up to it, she lost every single memory of her great family. She lost her brothers and her sisters and the brothers-in-law who helped raise us, and she lost everyone. And the dog knew. He knew that there was a change in her. So if he wasn't abandoning me for Sam, he was abandoning me for her. I mean, he was still my buddy and we still went outside. And that was a long, death defying procedure. But he just knew. And so, there have been a lot of great dogs that I've read about over the years, but most of them were in fiction. Most of them were Buck and Call of the Wild and Savage Sam, but I just didn't, and believe me, Speck didn't have to fight off a bear, but he would have.
He would have.
He would have. He fought off coyotes and he fought off other dogs that would have done harm to the creatures there, and just fearless. So he's this fearless, badly behaved, intelligent dog. He's mostly an Australian Shepherd, so he's pretty smart.
Yeah, pretty smart and they have a mind of their own. But now I'm gonna ask you a question, and I mean this with all due respect, but it's also been said that dogs sometimes mirror their owners. And as much as you, I don't mean this meanly, but you have been very upfront with, you have lived a good, hard, fully charged life. And I'm just going to guess by all the things I've read about you, don't take too kindly to being told what to do and what to eat and where to sit. So could it be that this is actually the perfect dog for you?
Well, it seems like one of us would have been responsible. When Speck almost killed me one night. We were playing out in the yard and playing as much as you can play. I said in the book that every dog should have a boy. And I guess what I really meant was every dog should have someone to run through mud puddles with. Every dog should, the banging of the screen door every morning should be the start of some great adventure. And I wanted to write my dog Skip. I wanted to write about it. Of course, Speck is far too violent to be, my dog Skip, but I wanted to do a story about a boy and his dog. But it was too late, just too late for that. Speck and I were out in the yard, and to be young, and he was hurting me. I thought I was being deft, and he bowled me over, and I rolled all the way down the driveway. I mean, I split open my knee and banged my head, and just laid there for a long time waiting to see if I perhaps might be dead. And it was the only time that I ever heard him whimper. He's whimpered one time, and he's been torn up in dog fights. He has been badly hurt. He tore his ACL so bad we had to have it pieced back together at the vet's, and the vet knows Speck intimately, and he's he's the best dog for me, I guess. He's the only dog I've really had of my own for 40 years.
You say
So,
too that they come, again, the beauty of this is your family really just, comes across sort of animals that no one wants or animals that need help. And you don't seem to think twice about doing that, but then it becomes very clear. Some animals belong to your mother and some will pay you mind. And obviously Speck was at your dog at the beginning. But then I think you captured, while may not have been the book you wanted to write, Rick, I think this book was so important for people who you were very honest about some things you were going through, getting older. We all sort of face our face our humanity or frailty. And, you moved back home to take care of your mom, which I think a lot of us either have done, are doing, or will do. And this dog, he helped you too.
oh, I wrote in the book that good dog is a fine thing to have on a slow day. A good dog is a fine thing to have on a good day. A good dog just makes everything better. But if you're at a point in your life where you're living beside this river of melancholy, that's the way one of my favorite writers, Larry McMurtry, who did Lonesome Dove and Last Picture Show, he said that some people are just born beside a river of melancholy. Some of us find it later, and if you're there, if you're on an empty day, you don't need a good dog. You need a bad dog. You need a dog that will rip and tear at it and fill that day up. And Speck is not the dog I had in mind. I had in mind a slow, fat dog, that would like walk with me down a road that was always slightly downhill, and but that's not what I got. I got a bad dog.
Now, at what point, I want you to describe for readers who may not have read the book yet. This dog just does not do anything right. And it quickly becomes a problem, not just for you, if you happen to leave your farm.
Right.
It very quickly becomes an issue of everyone decides what should happen to the dog. What happens when this dog is bad? Give people a sense of this was a unanimous decision of what should happen if you're not around and the dog has misbehaved, and the dog does misbehave. This is not a joke, people. This dog is bad.
Yeah, he's. I came home from. This is actually in the first chapter. I came home from some book thing, and couldn't find him. So I asked. My brother was beating on this old tractor in the yard, and I said, "Where's my dog?" And he didn't even look at me. He just kept beating on that old tractor. He said, "He's in jail." And jail is the key And so what did he do? And he said, run the mule.
Okay,
And I said,
hold on, because you broke up a little. Your connection's
Yeah.
not perfect.
Yeah.
Explain where jail is. This is a
Oh,
very specific.
Jail
like-
is a chain link kennel on the farm. And I mean, that ain't like we, beat him in there. It's just, he just, as my mother said, quote, I made him a mayonnaise sandwich, unquote, and he walked right in. But in one day he had created a stampede with the livestock, peed on every single vehicle there, including the tractors as he was working on them, and watered all my mother's flowers. He drug part of an old dead deer that he found up in the mountains down to the front yard and laid there under the kitchen window, chewing on a leg bone. He stole, we had a small dog called Puppy. He stole the puppy's ball, which was the only joy the puppy seemed to have in his life. He stole his ball and hid it, buried it. He ate all the other dogs' food and laid in their food bowl and growled. And he terrorized the cats, as my brother said, and ate all their food. As my brother said, quote, cats flying everywhere, unquote.
I feel so horrible. I'm sitting here laughing, and I'm hoping that people understand this is a great book. He's making fun of this dog, but Rick loves this dog, and you treat him very well. And in fact, you let him in your home when he doesn't smell good, can't behave. You've lost numerous items of clothing and other things, but you really do you do right by this dog. But it really is, this dog does not help himself, and it's so funny because he seems to know that he'll just wait until you get home, and when you get home, I feel like you're kind of his partner in crime.
Oh, I let him out. I let him out every night. I mean, he would be there in that kennel, and he would just be looking at me. And as I say in the book, he had been in a fight at some point, and a claw had damaged one eye. So he still has the eye, and it has a tiny amount of vision in it, but it's jet black. So he has one brown eye and one jet black eye. And as I wrote in the book, I said, I walked down the path, and there, guilty as hell and one eye shining, was my dog. And how do you look at that face and not let him out? And so I let him out every night.
And he knows there are times when he is actually a good dog, and you seem more shocked than anyone. But he also, I think, he pushes the limits, but in the sweetest ways too. He jumps up on your bed. I mean, as the story goes on, he sort of makes himself. He sits and watches TV. He goes and comforts people in your family. He even makes some peace with the other dogs. So what is neat is for people, it's a story about him. And so here's my question. I think you've answered a little bit. He is still evolving, like he's becoming better and better. Obviously, again, my condolences about your brother. I mean, what's his role now? How's he doing?
Well, he's doing okay. He has definitely slowed down. He slowed down a little bit. One of the people in the vet's office referred to him as geriatric, which I hope Speck didn't hear that. But he's we think, we're not absolutely certain, but we think he's like 7, maybe 7 or 8, but he's had a hard life. But he's doing good. He's, he has a dozen things wrong with him. He's got a collapsing trachea. He's got, a rebuilt ACL. He's been hit by at least one car. He has tender spots, all over him, and he's got a little bit of a limp, and but he's still a beautiful dog, and he's slower, and maybe, I don't know, sweeter,
Yeah.
than he has been. But he's more comfortable now. Now, believe me, he'll still claw the door off its hinges if he hears something outside, if he hears a creature outside, and there's nothing that he won't tackle. But he is more content now to lie on the floor. And what I let him do, God help me, if I give him a good check to make sure that he is not rolled in some kind of care, I will let him hop up on the foot of the bed, and while I'm working, when I'm writing, and he'll hop up on the foot of the bed and take a nap for a couple hours. Look, he's spoiled rotten, and he knows that he's getting away with murder. He just knows. He knows he's. I think he was always smart. We just didn't believe that early on.
I would like at this point to say that the fact of what he eats and what your mother has him eat and what he finds on his own to eat. I know this is not going to be a complete list, but if you could please entertain us with a short list of what Speck eats and will eat and has eaten. It is really quite impressive.
Well, the things that my mother prepared, she doesn't believe that any dog should have to live on dog food. She calls it that dry, rattling mess. And I realize that dog breeders swear by, good dry dog food. I get it. Speck mostly lives on scrambled eggs and buttered biscuits, and he gets chicken picked off the bone. My mother will painstakingly pick chicken off the bone, fried chicken, baked chicken. If he has barbecue chicken, we try to get as much of the sauce off as possible because he will wear it in his whiskers. He gets beef stew. He eats vegetable soup because it has beef in it. Anything with a smell or smear, he loves butter and cheese and basically anything that's bad. But he will also eat stewed squash and fried okra, and he just look. He lived on eggshells and gopher snakes and hamburger wrappers when he was a stray. We know this because we saw him for months and months and months, fighting in the ditches, trying to survive. And when you'd approach those strays, they would, most of the time run away. So the way I look at it, I'm sure that vets would look at me and go, please God, don't give that dog that food. But I don't really think a big plate of scrambled eggs is going to hurt him. And
and compared to what he was eating, and that's, this is a dog that the way you write it, and tell me if this is correct, you saw this dog sort of roaming through town with this pack of wild dogs, and your brother Sam saw the same pack. So you guys would see, and this dog stuck out. Why?
Well, he was a long-haired dog, and long-haired dogs are more rare. Most strays are mixes of some kind of hound. Smaller dogs tend to be mixed like Feist and Beagles and that kind of thing. But the bigger dogs, and the bigger ones are about the only ones you see because little dogs don't survive. But we live a dang long way from anything approaching a city or a town. We're out in the country, so the strays kind of last for a while, and then they just disappear. And what was odd about Speck was he would come and go. There are pine barrens and timberland, and we're not in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, but we are in the foothills of the Appalachians, and there's a lot of open land. And there might be an overturned garbage can. You'd see them. They would often fight over a female in heat, and they would. It was just the law of the jungle out there, and they don't usually last very long. But Speck, my brother believed, and Sam knew dogs and understood dogs, and not just the lore of dogs. Everybody knows the lore, but often the lore is not true. But he believed that when Speck would disappear, he had a place to go. He was not going back to anyone's home, but maybe going back to the place where he was abandoned. We think he was either thrown away because of the bad eye, or maybe someone moved away from a house or farm and just left him. People do that, people without a heart. And so we think he might have been maybe returning to a place looking for his people. And he left us once. He left once and tried to rejoin the dogs that he'd been running with, and they tore him all to pieces. He had tears on his ears, he had wounds in his neck and throat and leg, and that's when we took him to the vet. And this is more than most people probably would want to know, but the vet told me that if I wanted him to survive, if I wanted him to live, then he would just keep doing that until he was killed. And so we had him fixed, which I've always hated that phrase.
And that is, I think, Rick, not to interrupt you, but this part of the book is really it's so sweet, it's funny at the same time, but there's part of you that kind of loves that Speck has this wild in him. You acknowledge, like, I don't think he's ever going to get rid of this, and I don't know where he's been, and I don't feel it's right for me to take all the wild out of him. And you really, when that dog disappeared, you were beside yourself. Did that surprise you? Did that surprise you? Because really, that in the book tells me that at that point, it really becomes real. Like, I really want this dog back. I really, did that surprise you?
I went looking for him. Yeah, I went looking for him he was gone the better part of 3 days. And I know that, we always did in the past when a dog went missing, you just drive the roads, So I figured that if he had gone, this was before we got him fixed, I figured that I would find him. I figured I'd just come up on him. I had no doubt that if I opened the car door, he'd have gotten in. We were already pretty close, but I just couldn't find him. And on that third day, I came back from another fruitless search and pulled up in the driveway, and he was on the driveway in a little puddle of blood. And I just panicked. And he didn't even have a name then. We named him 15 different things, but it didn't sound right. And my mom I scooped him up and took him to the top of the hill, which was stupid because I left the truck way down a quarter mile away, and went in and called the vet and said I needed to bring him in. And my mom was talking to him when I came out, talking to him like he was a child. And she just said, you after my cousin Geraldine. And that's where his name comes from. my grandfather gave all the cousins and all the grandchildren a nickname. And Geraldine had this amazing display of freckles, just hundreds of freckles. So my grandfather called her the Speckled Beauty. And I told Mom, I said, Mom, I don't know much about this dog, but I'm pretty sure he's a boy dog, and she said, it doesn't matter. So I told him, I said, you're lucky we didn't name you Geraldine. But yeah, the Speckled Beauty, which I think was probably the best dog name in the history of all dog names. Which makes it, he said modestly, the best book title in the history of all book titles. And but I didn't have time to explain all that to the vet. I'm standing there holding this dog, and so I said, what's his name? And I said, his name is Speck. And that's how he named it.
And I feel like he lives up to his name, because the pictures you have of him, again, he's got one eye that doesn't see really well and everything else, but he really does have a beauty.
Oh,
he's really beautiful.
Yeah, he's a beautiful dog. The strange thing about the eye is the eye is more striking than it is sad. If you see him from one side, you'd think he just has two black eyes, but the photograph by this wonderful photographer, we had a choice. We could either use the kind of sad photo of him looking over his shoulder, not sad, but or there's one, or we had this happy photo that just, you just look at him, just tell that is a dog about to get into some serious trouble. But I think the one we used was there's just something about that face, that kind of tortured face, so we used that one, and then we used the happy photo on the back. And I talk more about a dang book cover than I've ever talked about one before. But
well, it is good.
I thought it was.
I don't know if they can see it.
Beautiful.
There you go.
I thought it. If that ain't a good-looking dog, I don't know what one is.
My goodness, I can't figure this thing out. It's not reading that one. You say that he's cleaner now. I want to know, what on earth? How do you? The things he got into. Look, we've had dogs our whole life. We'd take them on an island, and they'd find a dead fish out of the water that they'd roll in. I don't know how. I know obviously they have sense of smell. I still don't understand why they have to put it all over them. But how exactly do you keep up with the hygiene of Speck? He is long-haired. He is big. He doesn't, as I understand it, is not a big fan of being clean. And what is probably the worst? Do I want to ask this? What's the worst thing he's gotten into? By far,
there's a lot of deer hunting up around where we are, and we don't allow it on our land. But there's a lot of hunting, and what often happens is, while there's a lot of deer shooters, there ain't that many really old-fashioned deer killers. So you get a lot of wounded animals, and they run to our land. It's a tragic, and they run to our land and die. And Speck doesn't just roll in it. Rolling in it is one thing. He feasts on it. He loves the taste, apparently. Now, this is a dog that gets scrambled eggs and bacon. When I go to like the Huddle House, because I'm, very popular at the Huddle House. I bring him home bacon not every day, but almost every day. And by giving him bacon, I save myself from the cholesterol demon. So, he gets routinely, he'll get a little piece of steak of some kind.
Yeah, so this is not hunger.
No,
This is
he's
not a
no,
hunger thing, but he is a
no.
wild dog. I mean,
Right.
once it's like what they say about once they taste, unfortunately, chickens, like if they get a hold of
Yeah,
a chicken, it's probably,
yeah.
they would, yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh,
don't have any chickens left.
oh,
And not because of Speck, but because of foxes. But because of Speck, we don't have a fox anymore either. I mean, Speck but he just loves the aroma of a long dead creature of any kind. I say in the book that, thank God we are a long distance from any human cemetery, or we would wake up one morning and find Speck dragging somebody's recently departed Aunt Lurleen. It's a bad thing. And so when he does it, what's your choice? You can grab him by the scruff of the neck and yell in a strong baritone, no. Well, he don't care. He doesn't care. Do you think he's going to remember that? No. The next time there's another chance to wallow and he has managed to find find manure of every kind. Wild creatures, domesticated creatures. I said in the book that his only saving grace was that he didn't eat. But he even, after I wrote that, just to show me he can do what he wants to, he's just awful. And but giving him a bath, again, he's 70, I think he's up to 78 pounds, and he's big for his breed, but he's a big male. He's not fat at all. He's just big. And you get like a dog that don't want to be bathed of that size. He has never bit an innocent person. He has never bit anyone, anyone, except me. He bites me.
That's because you're trying to bathe him.
Like I'll get him around the middle, and he's so strong. He's and I'll get him up and try to we use that mane and tail shampoo, which is supposed to be good for him. It's just murder. And so my new plan is in the basement bathroom. I'm just going to get him in the shower in there, and then close the glass door, and then get a step ladder and do it all from the safety of above. I figure I can squirt enough shampoo on him, and then, I'm going to give that a shot.
Can you please make sure we get some video of that for, I mean, come on now. You may not, I see you post a little bit on Facebook. Everyone would pay good. You could probably charge for us to see your ideas of how to better wash Speck.
Well, I'd like to point out that I do not actually know how to post on Facebook, and plan to get out of this life without ever doing so. But the great thing about having a real good publishing house is they got lots of smart people, and the smart people do know how to post and do know how to make you look, at least like you got enough sense to do that much. But But look, I had a big aluminum tub, and I stupidly thought that he would appreciate the fact that I filled it up full of water and I let the sun get it warm. So he wasn't even in cold water. And let me tell you, he can, when he has never bit me to hurt me. He has always done it to remind me that, listen, Bubba, you may be bigger than me, but I'm not altogether certain you're as bad as you think you are. But I say all that, but I know for a fact he relies on me to look after him. He relies on me at the vet. When I take him to the vet's office, he relies on me and trusts me.
Do you trust him?
Oh God, no. I would trust him if I were hurt.
Yeah.
I would trust him to stay with me. I ain't saying he's Lassie, but I do know that yeah, I would trust him I would trust him. I do trust him. He looks after Mom. He makes every step she makes. If she goes to her garden, which is not a trek away, but it's a good walk. He walks with her. He sits at the top of he goes with her. And as she picks okra or pepper or whatever, he goes back up to the top of the hill where he can see everything around her and just watches. So he's got some sense. And but yeah, he's not he'll go to the vet, but he doesn't always want to go in. He doesn't always want to get in the truck. So once again, I have to fight him, to get him in the truck. And then I've learned, though, Mama told me this, tell him you'll bring him something. Tell him you'll get him something on the way home. And I said, Mama, he's smart. I'm not sure he's that smart. Then I started telling him, okay, buddy, we're going to go to the vet. They're not going to hurt you. They may have to give you a shot, but we'll get you some chicken nuggets on the way home. And he just past couple of times, you just hop right in.
So that's the trick. So I have a couple questions now from people who've been listening to this, and I hope their stomach muscles hurt as much as mine do, because I feel like I've had an ab workout. So I'd like to thank you for that. As always, you are so superb. It is wonderful to listen to you.
This has been a pleasure.
This is a great question, because this was one I was going to ask. This is from Melody Hyman, and she says, do you have any other books in the cooker and ideas for future books? And that is a good question, because as you said, you wanted to write a nice book about a sweet dog, and obviously circumstances and the dog itself that you were that arrived was very different from that. But what are you? Please tell me you're going to keep writing. I mean, we need you.
Oh yeah, I'm I ain't that far gone. We've been putting off doing a novel for about, I think about 17, 18 years now.
Wow.
We had a contract for a novel for years and years and years and years and years. But there was always a story about my people that I needed to do while there was still time. I'm not going to get into exactly what that means, but I needed to do them while there was still time. And so
I think you froze up. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't really have the heart to write any more about family right now. I just don't have the heart.
That is understandable.
So I'm gonna not saying I won't do it again someday, but I think we're gonna write a novel. I think it will be. I don't think I think it will be about the people of the Deep South, I've lived everywhere from Miami to New Orleans to Atlanta to Birmingham to, everywhere in the South. And I've lived in New York and LA and Boston, and I've worked overseas from, the Pakistan border with Afghanistan to Haiti. But I don't want to write about things I don't really know. So I'll write about the people of the Deep South, I'm sure. And we'll find a good idea. I already have a few. And see what happens. And it'll be a relief to know that when that book comes out, no one like third cousin is going to walk up to me in the Huddle House and slap me out of the booth. So that'd be good.
Yeah, there is I've always admired that you've written about your family, but you are very honest, and it is a tribute to them. I believe that you're still with us, because sometimes you tell it like it is. But we've talked about this before, Rick. Telling stories is so important, and storytelling itself is something that these generations just have to realize. This is the only way it stays alive, and your stories are so engaging, and everyone can find someone in there to identify with, even if you're not from the Deep South, right? But because people are just genuinely, we all have more in common than we think. I have a great question from Teresa. What have you learned from Speck?
Oh, God. That's a great question. I can truthfully say I have not really contemplated him that deeply. Wrote a whole book about him and never really contemplated. I think that I don't know if there's really a lesson in it, but there is an admiration. He fought to live. I've been very lucky. I've had some sicknesses, some illness, and survived with good doctors and people praying for me who would not, unlike me, probably burst into flame. But Speck fought to live. I mean, he should not have made it, and he fought to live. And then I think when he got to the end of it all, my brother Sam said, that dog probably went up there to die. He went up to that ridge line. And where he was at, he could look down and he could see all these things that may be in a dog. Heaven on earth. 1 million squirrels. Other dogs waiting at the back door for big plates of people food. Livestock to harangue. But I think he had been shot at and chased away so many times. I found a lead pellet in the skin at the side of his rib cage. I don't know if it was a shotgun blast or just a BB gun, but he went up there to die. And so only when he just, was a man did he fight up to that point. And, anything that fights that hard to live, I have to admire. And my brother asked me, he said, I don't even know why you would want that dog. And I told him the truth. I said, I don't either. But yeah, I did. I mean, he was a tough guy knocked down. And so you know, I think I'm not going to say anything schmarmy like
Well,
that.
I'll tell you, you have some family in your people who've been knocked down. You've been knocked down, and I think the fact that I'm not putting words in your mouth, but the fact that he fought so hard to live, if it's not an example to you, it's okay, because it was a huge example to me, especially given COVID and everything else, and like you said, being along the river of sorrow sometimes. It really
Yeah.
gives you perspective. If this dog can last through all of that, maybe I should just get off the pity pot and get going.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
we have never had time in my family to feel sorry for
yeah,
ourselves. That's the truth.
right. You get
Yeah.
in my family, you get your 30, you get your 30 minutes max, and then you got to get back at it.
Yeah.
I have another great question. I don't mean to cut you
Sure.
off, but Merwin says there are so many great Southern writers: Faulkner, Harper Lee, O'Connor Porter, Margaret Mitchell, Caldwell Percy, Wolfe. Why do you think that is? Yourself included.
Well, that question gets asked a lot, and I think the answer fluctuates with what kind of mood you're in. A lot of people say that that it's the pathos, it's the blood that we've watered this ground with here. The white Southerners being on the losing side of, first the Civil War, then the Civil Rights Movement. Now, not all white Southerners were fighting against. What was the right side? The right side was to end that abomination called slavery. The right side was to end that abomination called Jim Crow. And so writers from both sides of that color line had to have soaked up that meanness and that pathos and seen that courage and seen all that damn misery. And if you want to write so that people will read you, then you need to write with richness. You need to write with a genuine drama as opposed to melodrama. I got in trouble once for saying that my people were the toughest people on the planet. But I was talking about like cotton mill workers. Didn't matter what color you were. If you could stand beside a machine that would take your fingers, hands, and arms, if you had the guts to do that, if you had the guts to go underground, go a mile down into the earth and drag coal out of it, if you had the guts to work over a sewing machine that would send a needle through your very flesh if you just miscalculated, I think that's why I never was very interested in rich Southerners. I was never interested in the veranda. I was never interested in that old South. I was interested in the people who did the heavy lifting. And so I think that just soaking up that life makes us better writers. I really believe that.
Well, I would have to say then Speck is the perfect dog for you, because talk about a dog who had a hard life, did the heavy lifting, and I think we all take comfort in the fact that as wild as he still may be, and as terrible as he still may be, when you go out on your book tours and you go sign copies of your books, he is there watching after your mom. And
Oh, yeah.
his friends are not his friends, the donkeys and the mule. And I wish you could really you had a lot about the mule, but I really feel like there may be a sequel in there for the mule. I feel you and the mule have work to do.
No, there were just too many jokes to be made about one jackass writing about another jackass. But no, right now, Speck is, I guarantee you, right now, Speck is on the end of the couch. There's a leather couch in the living room facing the fireplace. And Speck he sits up like a person. He doesn't really lie on the couch. He sits up like a person and he watches The Virginian with my mother. He likes The Virginian because The Virginian came out in a time when the censors would not allow a lot of like screaming violence, so
Right.
it's kind of like he likes the horses. He likes the fact that they play music. He knows that the gunfire is fake. He figured that out like that. So he likes company. My sister-in-law, Teresa, and my cousin, Jeanette, they come over and with my sister-in-law, Teresa's brother, Todd, they watch Westerns every night. Speck thinks that the only thing you can get on TV is like Westerns and televangelists. And yeah, he's looking after him right now. He goes outside. He mostly sleeps outside. And when I get home, he'll be very angry at me because I've been gone 10 days. That's the most I've ever been gone.
Uh-oh.
And so when I pull up in the driveway, he will have nothing to do with me. He will look at me to make sure that I'm me. And then he will run to the top of the ridge and pout. And I mean pout. And then when I come back out, he will be under my truck, making sure that I can't go anywhere again.
Well, I suggest, not a deer carcass, but I suggest you maybe bring him home something that he will like, perhaps a stop at the Huddle House on your way home.
Right.
This has been such a pleasure, Rick, and thank you so much once again for taking time with us. But most importantly, thank you for your gift of writing and your humanity and sharing really what was a very, really difficult time for you. It was for a lot of people, and I really, really appreciate it. You are a treasure. Thank you.
No, thank y'all. Thank you both. It's not one of these days we'll probably do a book and I won't get to talk to y'all, and that's how we'll know it's the end of the world.
Don't you? I don't. Blah, blah, la 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 la. I can't hear you.
No. I look forward to seeing y'all in person soon. Okay.
We would
Thank
love
you.
that. You take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you, Rick Bragg.
All right.
Everyone.
Ian Specker signing off.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us tonight